Hello, welcome to Club Fantasci. Today we are talking with Michael Coe of Gamelyn Games and game designer Scott Almes. We're going to talk Tiny Epic Defenders, maybe a few other things. Welcome to the show, guys.
Thank you very much. Really glad to be here.
I know that this is a very busy week for both of you, and so we appreciate you taking the time to do this. Just so you guys know, you can also check out other games from Gamelyn Games like Dungeon Heroes, fabulous little two-player game of the year, award winner on Club Fantasci. So,
hey, real quick before you move on too much from that, I got to show you something. This is pretty special. So I've got it in the App Store right now. It's gonna be coming out any day. I don't know why it's taking so long. Oh, come on, Game Center, you're stealing the show here. Let me get out of the Game Center thing. Cancel. Come on. Bam. Dungeon Heroes, iOS. Look for that any day now.
Fabulous. So now you also won Golden Geek Awards this year, didn't you?
Oh, yes, we did.
Indeed. Indeed. Got that right here, hanging up on the wall. Very proud of that little guy.
Yeah,
mine is just out of reach, but mine's there over there too.
you guys knocked it out of the park this year. Wow. I mean, what can you do with how much better of a year can you have?
Well, I guess we're gonna find out here. I don't know, but we got a lot of high hopes for Tiny Epic Defenders. Honestly, Tiny Epic Kingdoms is the greatest game I've ever played, and Tiny Epic Defenders is challenging that position. I love Ted. So who knows, man? If other people can tap into the greatness that Tiny Epic Defenders brings, who knows what this year what's gonna unfold for the rest of the year.
You've kind of built yourself a little niche here with these little micro games, and it seems to be paying off pretty well for you. How did that come about?
Well, I'll tell you that it's kind of a trend that I've recognized that's happening with Kickstarter, and I love Kickstarter, and I love Kickstarter backers, the whole thing. I'm an evangelist, but one thing that I've kind of seen happening is because of the nature of Kickstarter and how fast games are coming out nowadays, that games become a flavor of the month. And it's like, you get a brand new game, you play it once, twice if you're lucky, but it's like when you show up to the next game week with your buddies and you've brought your Kickstarter game along that you just received last week and you've played, but everybody else has also brought a Kickstarter game along that everybody's dying to play. And so there's only so many games you can play. And what happens is these games that $50, $60, $70 games, $100 games that you're picking up on Kickstarter, they see one or two plays, and then it's already time for the next game. And so to kind of react to that and to kind of try to help my customers not have buyer's remorse, I've really started to focus Gamelyn Games on small games, micro games, small box games, but that pack a really big punch so that the gamer can still have an exciting, awesome experience. But if it gets one or two plays and that's that, then they don't feel bad about having dropped $70 on it. It means $25 or less, and they were able to have this great time. And so it's just one of those things where I've seen the industry starting to go that way in terms of what the backers are looking for, and I've received a lot of appreciation from backers for focusing in on that.
Well, I mean, and that's something we've talked a lot about here on Club Fantasci, is the whole cult of the new, where every 6 weeks there's a brand new game that everybody's talking about, and you can't keep up. And like you just said, as a reviewer, when I go to my local game nights, everybody there is already so excited to play all their new games. They don't want to play what I'm stuck with.
Yeah.
They don't want to say, oh, that game's already 3 years old, or this game is that, or blah 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 blah. It makes it really really hard because there are so many games coming out all at once that you just can't keep up, and nothing does get more than 6 plays before it's already old. What is it now? It's like 6 months and it's an old game.
Right.
So that is a definite an issue, and I hope it doesn't cause the whole Kickstarter thing to crash at some point. But Scott, what about you? I mean, how do you feel about that? You're a designer. I mean, you've got.
Oh, I love working in this space, and it's one thing that I share with Michael too is that I like to prove that just because it's a small box doesn't mean it's a small game. I mean, I really feel like you don't have to spend $70 to get a game that you can play more than twice and enjoy it. And and from a designer and just a marketing standpoint too, a small box game we can actually share a lot easier with everybody. I think we can do print and plays. I mean, it's very hard to print and play a $70 game. People do it, but with Tiny Epic Defenders, and I mean, of course, Tiny Epic Kingdoms, we had countless people printing the game and trying it out, and it's such a great space to work in right now. It iterates quickly, and yeah, I'm just excited about it. And one thing that I'll have been so happy about Tiny Epic Kingdoms is, as you said, the cult of the new is just on fire right now. And one problem with Kickstarter actually is that a lot of times a game will get a lot of buzz, and by the time you actually get it, people don't care anymore.
Right.
But with Tiny Epic Kingdoms, people are still talking about it. It was only a couple weeks ago that we weren't getting daily comments on our Kickstarter page. So this print and play has been able to keep people really interested in it, and it's just a fun place to be working right now.
I can tell you, and I don't know if Michael ever took a look at the page, but when we ran a contest for this game last week, and that thing just blew up. I mean, it blew up. You know, I'd never had a contest run that big before with all the comments and everybody that was so excited about it. So I think you guys have really tapped into something here, and obviously it wouldn't work if the games weren't great. People wouldn't be coming back for more if the games weren't great.
Right.
So, you know, anybody's watching this interview, take that as a hint and jump on this right away.
Right,
so,
that's the bottom line. You know, Scott Almes is a brilliant designer, and I know he's right here, and I'm talking about him in third person, but Scott, really, dude, you've done a great job. And that's the thing, is that these micro games, these small box games, you know, it's really difficult to capture that big box experience in such an elegant, streamlined rule set, and you've done it, man, lightning in a bottle.
Oh, thanks. And I mean, one thing that we've done too with these campaigns is that we're not leaving anything up to, I don't know, backers wondering what we're offering them. I mean, we put out the print and play. We show them this is exactly what you're getting. You can try this game. You can go online. You can find tons of reviews. I mean, we're putting it all out there for each campaign. And I think people have really responded to that.
All right, so let's get down to the brass tacks. You got Tiny Epic Defenders. It's a cooperative 1 to 4 player 30-minute game, right? How intuitive is it for the average person to pick up?
I mean, I'll speak to that because I've put it in front of a whole bunch of people. The game is super easy to teach, and people pick it up instantly. I mean, it's very simple. The rule set is so simple, and just kind of the mechanics that's going around, there's not a lot to comprehend. But as you dig deeper, there is just layer after layer after layer that really makes you go, okay, it's not quite as simple as I thought it is. Now I actually got to think about my decisions. There's a lot of meaningful decisions to be made here, and I'm starting to kind of realize that where, you know, but players pick up and get right into it in just minutes. Literally, I'll walk up to somebody and I'll be like, hey, you have time, you have a half hour for a game, I'll teach it to you, we'll play it all in a half hour, 4 players even. And by the end of it, they're like, okay, that was amazing. When is it hitting Kickstarter? I need to have a copy of this in my collection immediately.
Why 13 and up?
You know, 13 and up is so that is kind of a safety inspection thing. So anything under 13 has to go through a whole series of additional safety tests, and that with that comes a lot more expense and a lot of other things, and a lot more logistics and delays and things of that sort. So to kind of skirt that, I throw 13 plus on the box.
So really, kids younger than that can handle this game.
Yeah, your 8-year-old could play it. We just can't put it on the box.
I mean, I could if everybody wants to wait another several months, and
right.
You know, it's going to cost several $1,000s. And I mean, there comes a point when, you know, as a publisher, it is my responsibility to make sure that a certain degree of safety testing is occurring, and so I work with manufacturers that use lead-free paint, that use non-toxic paint, and so there are certain things that I've already, you know, made sure to consider and put into place for safety. But with the art style of the game and with different things of the game, you know, I'm really my target market for this game is, you know, 20 plus, you know, and so it's one of those things, you know, young kids too, but it's just easier to not play in that field quite yet, and Tiny Epic Defenders doesn't really need it.
Now, are you using the same artist in all these games?
So Tiny Epic Defenders is the same illustrator, Bill Bricker, who did Tiny Epic Kingdoms. I had worked with him as well on Dungeon Heroes. So Ted is our third project together, Bill and I.
Okay. I mean, his artwork's fabulous, so I don't see why not. Um, what are you expecting differently, or what are you doing differently with this Kickstarter that you've done in the past?
So I'm definitely taking a lot more time off of work. I've really dedicated my schedule to being available. And in the past, I'd like to say that I've developed something of a reputation for being a tangible, transparent, and project creator who's just right there, answering every comment or reading every comment, answering questions. But I really want to take that to the next level, and just really dedicate my time to the project and really be there with the people. And so I definitely am doing that. I've also prepared for the project to have more success than what I'm used to, not necessarily more than Tiny Epic Kingdoms, but I mean, Tiny Epic Kingdoms set a whole new bar, and I don't really go into Kickstarter having any sort of expectation of reliving that same kind of success, but it's one of those things where Tiny Epic Defenders shares a lot of similarities across the board with Tiny Epic Kingdoms. And so I don't want to be caught flat-footed if it does have that kind of success. I've certainly not put the cart before the horse. I'm not spending money I don't have, but it's just one of those things where I just wanted to go into this. If things occur the same way as they did with Tiny Epic Kingdoms, I'm a little more prepared this time.
And how available are you, Scott, on this particular project?
Oh, I'll be as available as possible. I mean, I will say Michael certainly carries the bulk of the load, but I mean, I read every comment and I'm there answering design questions and working in the background. So I'll be there the whole campaign.
You guys have been putting out games at a pretty good pace now lately. This is what, the fourth Kickstarter in a year. What keeps the ball rolling so smoothly for you guys, and how are you having these games ready to go in such a short amount of time?
It's just a matter of preparation. It's one of those things, David, where I see a lot of Kickstarter project creators going in, whether they're first timers or even seasoned, and whether it be delays happen for a ton of reasons. But I think Gamelyn Games right now is at a pretty nice pace where, I am putting out a decent amount of projects, but the timing of it is working out so much that it's not like I'm holding product back at my manufacturer waiting for another product to be done so I can save a dime on shipping. I'm not quite at there, and so maybe that's actually to my benefit. But I mean, having ran 8 successful Kickstarter projects, I've delivered them all within 2 weeks of my estimated delivery time, and I really come from a place of under-promising and over-delivering. I would rather tack on an extra 3 months from what I really think the estimated delivery date is going to be, than to just, say, oh, it's going to be coming out super early, and then I end up being 3 months late. It's just one of those things where I really don't ever want to set an expectation that I cannot realistically achieve. Now, granted, mistakes happen, delays happen, and things of the sort, but as having been in the industry for 3 years professionally, I can anticipate a lot of those issues, and I can have things in place to help alleviate delays. And so that's just a matter of planning and hard work.
What separates this game from its predecessor?
Everything except for the theme and the art, mechanically, the game is completely standalone. You don't have to have heard of, played, or seen Tiny Epic Kingdoms to enjoy, play, fall in love with Tiny Epic Defenders, and vice versa. The games are entirely standalone. Whereas Tiny Epic Kingdoms was a very competitive 4X, just a grand kingdom construction game. Tiny Epic Defenders is really a riveting, kind of on the edge of your seat cooperative game. So a very different approach, a very different experience for the gamer, but just as grand and epic. And it really, again, takes what is typically explored in longer, bigger box games and just elegantly fits it into a small box.
Where are these ideas coming from, Scott?
Oh, well, kind of all over the place. I mean, one idea that we're kind of developing with the Tiny Epic game series in general is that each game is planned to be very different. These ones happen to be in the same storyline, but we both don't want to just give you Tiny Epic Kingdoms again and again and again with different artwork. We want each one to be a completely new experience. Tiny Epic Kingdoms was trying to condense and say something new about a 4X game. Tiny Epic Defenders is my take on a cooperative game that's quick to play, and they're all going to be small box and condense some brand new idea into that small box, and each one's going to play different. And the same thing with Tiny Epic Kingdoms and Tiny Epic Defenders. Uh, any game could be your first introduction to this series.
Now, Michael, you mentioned something earlier about how Tiny Epic Kingdoms was your favorite game to date that you've ever played. Now you're putting this one out. How hard is it to keep raising that bar and putting out another new game? I mean, I know it can't be easy just to come up with a great game idea and have it be a hit every time.
Right.
You know, I mean, how are you guys able to come out with a great game after great game after great game and not have anything that really is kind of sucked?
Well, you know, there's a criteria that I have. You know, there's a set of standards that a game needs to meet for me to be interested as a publisher. And one of the key elements is that I really, as a player, I really attach myself to being able to conceive a strategy, develop that strategy throughout the game, and then conclude and execute the strategy in the end. I'm not always successful, but if I can go through that process and I feel like I can wrap my brain around the game enough to have an ownership as a player in what I've done with my time in this game, and by the end I've had a good time and I've really enjoyed it, and it's intrigued me in a way that other games haven't. Maybe that may be in a big way, that may be in a minor way, but if it's kind of got me thinking and got my wheels turning a little bit in a different direction than I'm used to, then you've got me hooked.
One of the challenges of running a Kickstarter program is the social media aspect of doing all this. You've got Twitter, you've got Google, you've got Facebook, you've got Board Game Geek, you've got the Kickstarter page itself. How do you handle it all and still have an effective campaign and still have time to do everything?
Time and I link my Facebook and my Twitter. That's a really neat feature, and so most of the stuff that I'm able to post in one place gets automatically posted in another place. So that saves me that extra step. It's just also organization. Just depends. Everybody's got different ways of how they organize their life, but the way that I've got my bookmarks set up on my computer and stuff, when I sit down in front of my computer, I can kind of go through a systematic. Okay, let's visit this and check these messages and say something. Let's visit this site, check these messages, and say something. And so I kind of just go through that.
Was that a real surprise to you? I mean, coming into all this, how much work just that alone was going to be?
Tremendous. I mean, that really is its very own business altogether. It's really crazy, really how many facets and how many different individual professions are tied into being a publisher. And really, it's like some people go, well, what do you do? What is a publisher? And it's like, I'm a guy who wears 1,000 hats. It's like I'm a train station with all these different routes coming in, and I'm managing and saying, okay, you go this way, you go this way, And so it's neat, it's exciting, but it definitely is a full-time gig. It takes a lot of mental constitution as well as time being dedicated.
And you're a brand new daddy.
I love it, man. My angel is fantastic. That's funny because it's like sometimes that really is the greatest thing going. As much as we were talking about all this is all awesome. I mean, family is my life.
Right, absolutely. Scott, as a designer, were you planned on being pulled into it? Is this much outside of just designing the game, or do you really feel like it's?
I love this part of it because it's whenever I didn't really experience it until we got into the Tiny Epic Kingdoms campaign. Merchandise went really well. Kings of Steam was extremely well received, but whenever I really felt like the community around us, whenever we did Tiny Epic Kingdoms, it was just, I realized how much I was missing from it, from the people playing the print and plays, from their comments and support. It just opened my eyes to the entire process. And that's actually one of the big things I'm looking forward to tomorrow whenever we launch, is just to be chatting with everyone again on the forums, talking about the games, talking about the designs. Just it's We could make $1, and if we just get to chat with them all day, I think I'd have a good day.
Well,
It's really optimistic.
how much of that dollar? How much of that dollar is going to me, and how much of that dollar is going to you? It's funny.
It's all
what you
going to
say there.
Kickstarter.
Yeah, right. No, it's a good point that you bring up, Scott, and I want to just kind of emphasize it that it does. I kind of related it in my mind to like being like a football team, and you go through seasons, and it's like there's the off season, and then when you get back together for the first time, training day, boot camp, whatever it is, and you see your crew again, and you're just excited for the season and excited to work together. That's kind of what this feels like in a way, because, and uniquely with Tiny Epic Kingdoms, more so than previous projects, only because this one was like a live chat room 24/7, 11,000 plus comments on the project. That's insane. I've not found another project that compares, and it really kind of was very avant-garde for Kickstarter in and of itself, where it really started to expose chat room, where Kickstarter is a comment board, but it really ought to probably have some things in there that function a bit more like a chat room, maybe some search features where people can look up old comments a bit easier. It started to expose things where the comment board was really not quite prepared to handle the kind of activity, and it would get to a point where it would just not upload any new comments, and it would just say, it would upload them in like increments of like 25 comments at a time. Just bam, here's 25 new comments. Here's 25 new comments. And so, but because of that, it really created a living, breathing team around everybody. I'd wake up in the morning, I'd see some familiar faces, we would chat, we'd have a good time, and and so I'm just excited to get back together with everybody and keep that going.
Now, on knowing that, and you may not experience as much as some others, how do you deal with the trolls?
I come from a business of hospitality, and I've been in the hospitality field for a long time, and I've grown up with the internet and whatnot, and so that it's one of those things where, especially also developed in maybe my previous acting career, and I've just grown a thick alligator skin, and I take everybody from an equal and thoughtful perspective. So even people that are on there trolling, I don't come from a perspective where I instantly label that. I'm like, oh, that's a troll, and then all of a sudden, if I start doing that, subconsciously, I start to behave differently toward that person. And every backer is important, and even people who are just $1 just there to chat. I would like to think that in the future, maybe if this game is not for them and they're trolling about it, that some of my other products are for them. And I'm certainly not going to start breaking down relationships because of a few things said online, that who knows where that perspective of that other of the troll, where they're coming from. It very well could be confusion, misunderstanding that maybe is caused from me because I was ambiguous in maybe something I had said. It's just there's so many things that can be playing into it that I don't jump to quick conclusions, man. I give everybody a chance. I'll talk to the trolls just as friendly, and I'll be I'll be there to answer their questions like anybody else.
You're a better man than many. Like that's to stay. Let's talk a little bit about the campaign itself. Now, it's going to be a 30-day campaign. How long are you running this?
Yeah, 30 days.
30 days. And what are we looking for stretch goals wise?
So, I've got the project goal set at 15,000. I've got stretch goals right now up to a little over 30,000. It's kind of a nice. That's usually what I do with my Kickstarters. I usually start off with stretch goals that will just about double the initial funding, and then I go from there. I do have additional stretch goals prepared if we get up over that, and I'll be ready to start unleashing new stretch goals. Scott and I have really had a lot of neat developments in Tiny Epic Defenders that will be fun to explore if the game allows for that.
Scott, as a designer, how much on the front end do you get to do besides the back end, so to speak? I mean, how much in the actual artwork do you get to play a part in, the actual marketing of it, or do you prefer to be back just designing the games and off throwing your opinion every now and then?
Yeah, well, I mean, designing the game is certainly the space I like the most, and one thing that Michael Coe is really good at that he tends not to mention too much, but he is good at, is the development of the game. So whenever him and I have a game signed. I mean, him and I are working on it back and forth constantly until it actually gets to the point. And I mean, he has the final call on the artwork, but I love seeing the artwork as it comes out and commenting it. And luckily, I've only worked with good artists so far, so I've never really had any complaints. But yeah, I love to be part of all that. Certainly, after our Kickstarter ends, my role drops down, and that's when Michael really carries the torch from there on out. But I love being involved as much as I can.
Now let's ask this: you guys are so busy doing this for a living all day long. How often do you get to play other games?
Not as often as I'd like.
No, man. For me, I do try to take some time out to explore other games. It's important to do that as an industry professional, and so I do that to just kind of expand my knowledge of what else is happening in the industry. But outside of Gamelyn Games products, it is pretty tricky. So, right now my kind of relief game is Hearthstone on the iPad because it's just quick. That's what each match is like 10 minutes, and so
Right.
Yet again, I just love quick, fast, strategic games, and that's one of them.
Well, you probably don't have the time to sit down and play for 3 or 4 hours like you used to either. So,
It's tough.
that's definitely going to play a part in that. Now, this is a year later almost since the last time you and I talked, Michael, online in an interview. Give me some of the biggest things that you've learned about running a Kickstarter that you didn't know then.
There's phases and there's the next level, and my projects in the past had felt very quaint and were really great in their own right, and I had a blast. But this past year, I've really been able to develop as a project creator, and really just kind of start to realize the big scope of, it's one of those things where any thing that you're doing that's an online job of any sort has that potential. Anything on the internet has the potential of going viral and just blowing up and being bigger than what you can expect. And I think that as a project creator, that's something I kind of dream of, and that's something I hope for. But to experience it, the way that it happened in Tiny Epic Kingdoms, and to kind of live through that, really opened up my eyes that really requires so much more dedication, and even just making sure that you're really being respectful. Now, it's a realization that there's a lot of eyes on you, and so that's just one of the things that I've kind of grown into throughout this year is just making sure to really always be patient and just take things as they come, but to always don't be quick to judge. I mean, it comes back around to that troll thing, because it's the law of large numbers. As you start to deal in larger numbers, you start to get more trolls, you start to get more of everything. And so all around, I've just had to take a step back and say, okay, this is big. You need to really focus. You need to really dedicate your time. You need to, I've always taken this serious, but it's like, okay, now you really got to take it to the next level.
What about for you, Scott? I mean, what have you learned over the last couple of these Kickstarter campaigns?
Oh, so much, and I feel like I'm learning more weekly on all this stuff. I mean, like when I first started game designing with Martian Ice and Kings of Air and Steam, my playtesting area wasn't nearly what we hit with all the print and play versions of of Tiny Epic Kingdoms. I mean, it's completely different looking at feedback from 3 or 4 groups and feedback from 100 different people who played the game. I mean, sorting through that kind of stuff and really taking it to heart and making the game even better because of it. I mean, it's something new, and it's also time management. I mean, at the point where I have more than one project going on at a time, it's all exciting stuff, and it's just dealing with the growth that we've had in the last couple of years. It's exciting. I mean, and Kickstarter as a platform, it changes every couple months. What's standard, what's not standard. I mean, it's the production values on your Kickstarter page are continuously going up. I mean, you're not having too many runaway games with someone filming themselves on an iPhone in their basement. I mean, it's
Yeah.
the business is just expanding.
Right, and I always said that that would happen coming from an entertainment background is the more you're trying to capture other people's dollars to be able to fund your projects, the more professional it's going to have to be because everybody's going to start doing it.
Mm-hmm.
Once you get into a niche where there's some success and other people see that happening, they all start doing it, and they all start doing it. Before how many games are released on Kickstarter a week now?
Oh, jeez.
I don't know the weekly numbers, but I will say that when I first got into the business and I was looking at other board game projects, there were maybe 180, 200 projects running at any given time for this board game specific category, and now there's 380, 400, 400 plus.
Right. You know, and I think that sometimes people forget to think about the whole campaign of the game beyond just getting the product out to their clients or their backers. You know, how are you going to market the game afterwards?
It's a business.
Yeah, it's a business, and Kickstarter is it's either gonna really take this thing to the next level or it's gonna sink because people just abuse it and do it wrong, and eventually, you know, I would hate to see it where we start seeing people coming at each other's throats because somebody's being really successful and somebody isn't. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
But we'll see what happens with that. I'm always a little hesitant because I've seen it happen in the past with other mediums, but I gotta imagine that board games are one of the hottest topics right now on Kickstarter. So, all right, let's take a minute here and talk about the process of designing this game. How did you guys hook up, and what made you come up with the idea of here we got Tiny Epic Kingdoms, and now let's add part 2.
Okay, so Tiny Epic Kingdoms started last year, I think last October. I sent over Michael Coe my game Tiny Epic Planets at the time, and I told him what it was. I'm like, I got this small box game. It has these very few components, but it's a 4X game. You gotta believe me on this. It's a 4X game. And he's like, okay, yeah, that description sounds pretty cool. Send it over. And I actually think he ended up doing a print and play for it because I couldn't get it over to him in time for a convention. And he enjoyed it quite a bit, I think, and that grew from there. And as we started to work on Tiny Epic Kingdoms, I had this game in the background that I've been designing for over a year. It was a game about being rescued on a lifeboat. Everyone was working together, trying to get to shore and trying to manage different stuff happening in your lifeboat. It wasn't working really well. It had a lot of logical inconsistencies between the mechanics. Never was working the way I wanted it to overall. And as we're working on Tiny Epic Kingdoms, I kind of looked at the board. It had the circle shape, and I just pictured, well, that could be your capital city in the middle, and those are all your regions on the side, and it could fit in the same universe, and it just grew from there. And the Tiny Epic universe, that fantasy world we created for Tiny Epic Kingdoms, solved a lot of the problems I was having with that game, and it grew. I added in new mechanics because of it that made actual thematic sense and didn't look like I was just pulling stuff out of my rear end, and it just grew. I sent it over to Michael, and he thought it was good enough, I guess.
Loved it, man. Loved it on my first play. I knew that it was a great game. I just knew there was something really, really neat. So.
We're there?
Yeah, we lose you there for a little bit.
Yeah, the connection went out. So let me see.
Yeah.
Let me see where we're at here.
Scott kept on talking, so hopefully we didn't lose
brilliant answer is gone.
Well, no, hopefully we didn't lose our audience or our video, and so.
No, it doesn't look like it. It says stop broadcasting. It says we're live, so I think we're okay.
I think we just lost you for a little bit.
Sorry, man. All right. Anyway, continue.
Back from the top.
I don't know where you guys are at, so you guys just keep going.
I'll paraphrase. I mean, it really just, this was one of those things I put up on my site. I'm just looking for small games, and I opened up to some submissions, and Scott reached out to me last October with Tiny Epic Kingdoms, which was an amazing small game, and and it just kind of grew from there. It was just one of those things where I just knew right off the first play this game was absolutely fantastic. It needed to be in every person's collection. It really captured something I had been desperately looking for from a board game, which was that grand 4X kingdom building experience, but in a small package that I could play quickly and with an elegant set of rules. And so it hit on every head, and I just ran with it. And Tiny Epic Defenders, Scott was kind of talking about how that evolved from a different theme into fitting very nicely into the Tiny Epic universe. And so we just kind of tied it into Tiny Epic Kingdoms thematically. So it does progress and develop the storyline, but it's a different game like we discussed. So.
Are there going to be T-shirts?
I need to get you a T. I actually have a T-shirt for you, and I thought about it. I got to check my emails and get your address again, and I'll send you.
I just thought about it because I was looking at the logo for the game again. I'm like, wow, that would look great on a T-shirt. That'd be awesome.
I'm sure I could get some shirts made up. Probably not something on a tremendously huge scale, but enough to get some out there to some fans and some people I like, and maybe yourself.
They're great. They're great contest giveaways anyway.
Yeah, no kidding.
All right, so now this thing launches tomorrow at 9 a.m. EST.
Yeah, that's the goal. Get up bright and early and get that going so that people on the East Coast can have a chance to check it out before they get too deep into their workday. And so working hard at that.
All right, let's go with predictions. What's the funding goal?
15,000.
How long do you think it's going to take to hit it?
This is one of those things where it's like, I really want to be respectful of the Kickstarter backers, and I don't want to go being crazy about it. But I think we'll hit it. I think we'll hit it in the first. Let's call it. I don't know, man. Let's call it 5 hours.
I was going to say 3.
Okay, yeah. 3 hours sounds good. I'll take 3 hours. Why did I have to go first? Then I look at that guy.
You answered first.
You're the publisher. You're supposed to know the numbers.
Oh my goodness!
I'm just sitting back and designing, Michael.
I mean, we've seen some pretty big things happen over Kickstarter just the other day alone with Scott's other games. So I'm predicting, with just the general buzz around that this thing will fund very, very quickly. And then, hopefully all the stretch goals will be met, and then you can put out another fabulous product that goes above and beyond, right?
Yeah, exactly. And we've just both worked really hard, and it's just one of those things where, we've put a lot of time and blood and sweat and love into this thing, and it's just what it is, and it'll be what it's going to be, and we're excited for whatever that ends up being. But with the time and the effort we put into it, we really do hope for the best.
Yeah, and whatever funding level it hits, I mean, we're putting out something we're extremely proud of and is going to be great to add to your collection. So,
well, I know I've been a fan since the very first game. I was really shocked when we got it, and I pulled it out, and even as a solo, just playing it solo, it was fun. And ever since then, I've been hooked with the stuff that Gamelyn Games has been putting out, and so we're always going to be big supporters, I think, of what comes up through your little door there, and we appreciate you being so supportive of Club Fantasci as well. Absolutely, man. Thank you for that. If you like Dungeon Hero solo play, you're gonna love the arcade mode on iOS, man. It is addicting. It allows you to continue dungeon through dungeon, and so whatever you leave the dungeon with is what you enter the next one with. So if you've lost a hero or if you've picked up items, all that goes with you to the next dungeon. It's just a marathon gauntlet where you're just trying to see how deep into the dungeons you can get and tracks your score, and you're going to constantly be trying to beat your high score, just like an old school arcade game. So am I going to have to add like a whole new iOS review portion to Club Fantasci? Is that what you're telling me? Yeah, I think so. At least, if not for Dungeon Heroes. Now, what are you guys going to release this at? How much are you going to charge for it? $3.99. So very affordable, right there in the ballpark of being competitive with what other board game apps are doing. Absolutely. Well, if it's anything like the original board game, it's definitely worth the money for sure. All right. So, any final thoughts? Any last words about what you want to say about Tiny Epic Defenders? This is just something that nobody's going to want to miss out on. I mean, this really belongs in everybody's collection, and you don't have to take our word for it. Like Scott said earlier, we're very transparent with our whole process. The game is available. You can jump on Board Game Geek, search Tiny Epic Defenders,
go to the print and play, make yourself a copy of the game, read the reviews, do a combination of both, and then just go and check out the Kickstarter page. Watch the video. Most of it's explained right there. You know, it's one of those things where you'll know pretty quick if this is going to be the game for you, and it's an amazing game. And the price point, it's one of those things where you can get the base game for $16. You can get the full deluxe version for $24. So, you know, it's one of those things where you may as well just pick it up. It's just freaking amazing. It's going to be top-notch production quality too. I do not spare any expense when it comes to the actual material components of the game. I always make sure to take that to the nines.
Yeah, and if you do pledge tomorrow, come and join us chatting. I mean, we're in the comments section. We would love to hear from you. You know, we're there for the long haul, so we're looking forward to be chatting with the community again. So come say hi.
Yeah, please do.
You made me think of something, Michael. I want to throw this at you. I'm going to put you on the spot. Recently, I'd been seeing a lot of comments within the Facebook groups about the unimportance of reviews for the pre-Kickstarter process. How do you feel about that?
Reviews during the pre-Kickstarter process?
Yeah, you know, it's building up before the launch of the Kickstarter to give some people, you know, something to look at or hear about before they decide to back it.
And how unimportant the reviews are? Yeah. That's ludicrous. I've not gotten wind of that talk yet. But as a project creator, I'll tell you, that is the bread and butter to the pre-production and to the, you know, essentially the marketing and pre-marketing of the Kickstarter project. The reviews are top-notch important. I mean, they're something that I spend. I mean, you know, a lot of questions I'll get is like, oh, how much money do you spend getting ready for, you know, just to launch the Kickstarter? How much money do you spend? Right. And for me, it varies typically between $3,000 and $5,000. But I will say that I usually put $5,000 to $1,000 in just creating review copies because it's that important to me. So I mean, that's a third, you know, 25%, a third of my budget prior to launch goes to reviews. Critical.
And Scott, how do you deal with the reviewers and things? I know that you're pretty hands-on on the Board Game Geek with making sure they understand the rules and everything like that. Why is that so important to you?
Well, it helps us in many ways. I mean, not only it helps us clean up some issues. I mean, when we did, like, for example, when we sent out the Tiny Epic Defenders print on demand, we did end up making some changes because of their feedback. So just being able to listen to them and hear what they like about it, and if they have any issues, it's great. And I mean, to be honest, rule books are tough. Yeah. I mean, so even just the feedback on the rule book alone is helpful, and we're always there to help clear people up. We want people playing the right game, and yeah, it's great. I think it's very important for the designer to be a part of it too.
Well, I know that from our point of view, it sure makes it easier when there's somebody to answer the questions, especially, you know, sometimes you get those reviews and they want them back in a week or two. You know, and that's hard to do normally, but it's even harder now that when you go to game night, nobody wants to play the game because they've got all their own they want to play. So, right. You know, if you walk in the door with a print and play copy, everybody's like,
Yeah, I just got this final produced copy from Kickstarter that's 6 months late. We're playing this no matter what.
Right. Now I'm pretty lucky. I mean, most of my guys know what I do, and they help me out a lot, and they make sure at least one of the games gets played per night or whatever. But it can be a struggle. So it's always nice, you know, to be able to go back to, you know, especially if I'm having to do it all solo for a while before I get that game to the table, 3 or 4 plays, to have all those answers and rules and everything explained before I try to teach it to somebody else. So I certainly appreciate it. I think that's about it for guys. Unless there's something else. Is there anything else coming up that you want to talk about or launch or anything like that? Something to pay attention for in the future?
You know, I think I covered it all. It's just right now I'm totally focused on Tiny Epic Defenders. So once that wraps up, check back with Gamelyn Games because I will have some more exciting news. I mean, I've got a ton of exciting news right now. There are other projects in development and stuff, but truth be told, I really just kind of want to be focused on getting this. This is going to be big. It's going to take a lot, and I just really want to respect what this whole process is going to be. So I'm staying right on that.
Well, that's fodder for another interview then, I guess, right?
Yep.
All right. So find everybody. Where can they find you at?
GamelynGames.com. That's GAMELYN Games.com. You can check me out at Facebook/GamelynGames. Gamelyn_games on Twitter. You can find me there. So any place, I check it all. I love to reach out. So don't ever feel like you can't reach out to me. Please do. Any questions at all?
Scott, I know you're on Twitter.
Yep, I'm on Twitter at Scott_Almes. I'm there all the time. I love to talk shop, and I'm also on Board Game Geek constantly. I mean, anything that comes up you want to ask, chat about, I'm there. Rules questions, I'll get you squared away as quickly as possible. So.
Awesome. Well, gentlemen, thank you so much for your time, especially the day before the launch. I know how busy you have to be with everything going on, so I appreciate you making time for Club Fantasci.
Absolutely, David. It's our pleasure. I mean, I speak for Scott, too. He's a great man, but it's our pleasure.
All
yeah,
right.
It was a lot of fun. Thanks, David.
All right, everybody, you can catch the interview at clubfantasci.com. Also, make sure that you follow the links. They will be at the bottom of this interview to make sure that you're following everybody's pages, keeping up with the news. Kickstarter launches at 9 a.m. Eastern tomorrow, June 19th. Make sure you back it, check it out, and spread the word as quick as you can. Use those social media accounts. All right. Thank you to Gamelyn Games. Thank you to Scott Almes. And for Club Fantasci, thank you for tuning in. Have a good night.